Well, gotta remember the first thing to do is to make sure you take the battery out and power it down. And what we need to do on this Toshiba, it's got 4 little pads in one of each corner. You gotta make sure, try not to lose them because you'll end up needing them later. Put them back in, and usually most people will want them back in anyway since they're there to cover up the screws. Sometimes they're a little sticky and hard to get out. So I usually just stick them off to the side. Grab the screws, put them where they need to be. I usually just try to put all the screws back in the same hole they came out of. Just makes it easier for me. That way I know they always fit. Doesn't really matter most of the time though. All the screws are about the same if it's for the same thing. And you got to be real careful when you're going to grab this so that way you peel it off correctly. Got a little bit of a hitch down here at the bottom where it loops into the bottom frame area. That just pulls right off. Screen is partially detached now because 2 of the top screws held the top of the screen in. So what we got to do is we just got to take the bottom 2 screws out. So it goes over there. Looks like we've got a grounding wire right here attached. Okay, screen is still attached to the side brackets. So you just gotta take the screwdriver and do the side mount brackets. The old screen on this one must have gotten dropped or something because it just isn't displaying everything on the screen like it should. And make sure you're careful to hold on to it when you go to remove the last screw, because obviously it's going to fall if you don't. Slowly flip it forward, that way you don't accidentally screw up any of the wires. There's 2 wires on this particular screen because this model is just a little bit older to where it still has an inverter board. So try to save this tape since we'll need that. Undo the inverter board wire, which usually comes off pretty easy, but this one's, you know. Actually, I don't need to undo that wire. This one is coming down. Got a little bit of tape up here. Grab something. Get up underneath that tape a little bit to pry the tape up. Since this screen is broke, it's not super important. But I'm careful with it. Try to make sure I don't damage the wire itself. Usually, the cable just pulls right out. Got the old screen. Put the old screen up there. Bring the new screen forward. Bring that forward. We got this right here. We replace it in the same spot. Careful with it since it's the new one, obviously. the wire back in. Sometimes it's a little bit of a pain, but you gotta make sure you get it in evenly and properly, otherwise you just have to take it all back out and do it again. So we'll do it right the first time. The inverter board wire only goes in one way, as you can see, or maybe see from the angle that the camera's at. Put this tape back where it was. That way it can one there for hold it, but also gets used a little bit for grounding purposes. Okay, that step to where I can take this screen cover off that they graciously put on there to help me out and protect it a little bit further. Undo the tape, but still leave it sort of taped so I still got a little bit of protection. Get my fingers out of there. Get this all lined back up. Screen mount that back in. Tighten them in all the way, because obviously if you tighten them in all the way, you're just going to end up having to probably untighten them as you put in other screws. Put it back in. I usually do one on each side, make it so where it holds in real good. Now we got both screws in on this side. I can tighten it up without having to really worry about it. Do the same thing with this side now. Tighten these back up. Okay, now we can mount the back of that screen back to the back of the screen cover. Top cover is it sometimes is called. I almost forgot that this side had a little ground wire. I need to run it if I can get the darn screwdriver to work properly. Back the way it needs to be. And then, since the top two screws are held in by that, we just gotta slide this bad boy back in there. Put that together. That's together pretty easy usually. Put the top screws back where they go. Get that all lined up so that way you can get it all the way into the back of the top cover. Never over tighten. You just want to hit it to the end. If you over tighten, it'll strip out, break the plastic that holds in the metal on it, and it'll be even more of a replacement measure to fix the whole problem. Put bottom screws back in. And then normally at this point, you double check and make sure everything's snapped real good, because it needs to be, and it is. So now the only thing that is left is to put the little screw cover stickers on. But I recommend to wait on putting those back on until after you've put the battery back in, plugged it in, verified that it's working correctly again. Because sometimes the sticky on them is not exactly perfect, and you can sometimes only get them to re-stick once or twice or something like that. So it's best to wait. As an alternate, you could check the screen to make sure it was working before you even got this bezel back on, because sometimes you put the bezel back on and you might accidentally snap a little piece of plastic snap in there and it won't snap back on right. But right now, it's just been torn apart and put back together. All it needs is the stickies put on, so now I'd say we're done.